Okay, so let's get started. Is everyone?
We're back in 1 Nephi chapter 4.
Yeah, we're 1 Nephi chapter 4. They saw the angel. But then even after they see the angel,
they started murmuring again.
So
and the angel said that God would deliver Laban into their hands so that they could get away.
And then Laban and Nephi were like, what? That God isn't powerful enough to do that?
So to understand chapter 4, it's important that we first understand the law that they were living at the time. What was the law?
The law of Moses.
The law of Moses, right? So the law of Moses was different from the law that Christ gave us in the New Testament, right? So Moses was sent by God to free the Israelites. He frees them. He brings them out of Egypt. They're wandering in the wilderness, but these Israelites weren't really making the best choices. And they weren't really ready yet for God's full law of Christ. So God gave Moses a lesser law to help prepare the Israelites for the future, one that's not as full as the law of Christ. So it actually wasn't as spiritual as the law of Christ. It was a lesser.
Of course it wasn't. Like if you did like something really bad, you would kill.
Yeah, and actually there was all kinds of rules around that. But it was meant to prepare them to live righteously so that they would be prepared for the law of Christ when Christ would come.
Wait, so like the death thing is kind of like a threat for them to be good?
And it was a punishment. It was a punishment.
And it's like a kind of like a threat for other people?
Well, yeah, it was. People knew that if they violated the law of Moses, that one of the serious consequences would be they would be put to death. And that was actually common for all kinds of things. If people didn't keep the Sabbath day holy under the law of Moses, they were put to death. If people blasphemed
What does it blaspheme?
and said bad things about God,
They were put to death.
They were put to death under the law of Moses.
So
If
if
people
they actually
would
stole
try,
things, they were put to
if
death.
people attempted to kill another person, they would be put to death.
if somebody killed another person.
And according to the law of Moses, even if I had an ox that killed someone and I didn't get rid of it and it later killed another person, guess what?
You would be death.
I would be put to death
Along with the ox, I'm sure.
along with the ox. But it shows that the being put to death was really common under the law of Moses.
Yeah.
And it was really strict to help prepare the people for the law of Christ. And when Christ came, he said, you guys aren't going to be following the law of Moses anymore. And that actually made a lot of the Israelites really angry. They're like, who are you to tell us to stop following the law of Moses? And Christ responded, think not that I come to destroy the law. I come not to destroy the law, but to fulfill the law, he said. That this law is fulfilled in me, and you will now stop following the law of Moses and start following the law of Christ.
Wait,
I think they would have. I think they would have been happy about not having the death penalty. You know, like
Yeah, I would be if I was
stealing and stuff.
Finally,
And just
not
like, I
being
mean,
put
just
to
for
death.
like stealing or because my animal killed, accidentally.
But since Nephi lived before Jesus Christ, what was the law that God had given these people to follow?
The law of
The
Moses.
law of Moses. All right, so it's important to understand that as we read through chapter 4.
And it came to pass that I spake unto my brethren, saying, let us go up again into Jerusalem, and let us be faithful in keeping the commandments of the Lord. For behold, he is mightier than all the earth. Then why not mightier than Laban and his 50? Yea, or even than his tens of thousands. So what did Nephi tell his brothers?
To be
If
faithful.
an angel said it could happen, it could happen.
Well, and he said, let's be faithful. Let's be faithful because he's what? God is what?
More powerful than anything.
Yeah, more powerful than anything.
Therefore, let us go up, let us be strong like unto Moses. For he truly spake into the waters of the Red Sea, and they divided hither and thither. And our fathers came through out of captivity on dry ground. The armies of Pharaoh did follow and were drowned in the waters of the Red Sea.
So whose example was he trying to follow?
Moses.
Yeah, did God ask Moses to do some really hard things?
Yeah.
Yeah, but was Moses faithful?
Yes.
Yeah, but Nephi's like, hey, let's be like that too.
And
Now-
I think he's also reminding them of like, look at that miracle he did. He parted the sea.
Right?
What does parting mean?
He divided
divided it up so they could walk
through.
through the sea, and it was just walls of water next to them.
How
Parted
did
so
he
they could
do
cross.
that?
God.
By the power of.
Yeah, Moses can't do that.
It's like if you were to go to the beach and
You wanted to see the coral reef without the water.
The water just moves.
and the water just moves so you can walk.
Like in Moana?
Sure,
like in Moana.
Yeah, we'll go with that.
We'll go with that.
So if Moses could perform these great miracles with God's power, surely God could help them get what? The brass plates, yeah. Now behold, ye know that this is true, and ye also know that an angel hath spoken unto you. Wherefore can ye doubt? Let us go up. The Lord is able to deliver us, even as our fathers, and to destroy Laban, even as the Egyptians.
Are we? Oh yeah. Are we?
Now when I had spoken these words, they were yet gone.
Still angry.
And did still continue to murmur. Nevertheless, they did follow me up until we came without the walls of Jerusalem.
And it was by night, and I caused that they should hide themselves without the walls. And after they had hid themselves, I, Nephi, crept into the city and went forth towards the house of Laban.
He's more brave than his older brothers.
They probably
Oh, he's
crossed
more
lots
faithful.
down here.
And I was led by the Spirit, not knowing beforehand the things which I should do.
Are there going to be times where maybe God might encourage us to do something and we might not fully understand why or what we're doing? Should we say, I'm going to sit here and do nothing until I have a full and complete understanding of everything I'm supposed to do?
No.
What should we do?
We should try it ourselves.
Even though we don't have a full knowledge of what we're going to do?
Yeah, you should try it by yourselves so you can see if you really actually need help. But then if you really do need help, you'll
Right. So sometimes he'll just give us a little bit and see if we'll follow, and if we follow, that's when we are able to get more. Nevertheless, I went forth, and as I came near unto the house of Laban, I beheld a man. And he had fallen to the earth before me, and he was drunken with wine. So we saw this person kind of passed out, drunk on the ground and unconscious.
I wonder who it was. 8. And when I came to him, I found that it was weeping. And I beheld his sword, and I drew it forth from the sheath thereof, and the hilt thereof was of pure gold, and the workmanship thereof was exceedingly fine. And I saw that the blade thereof was of the most precious steel.
And it came to pass that I was constrained by the Spirit that I should kill Laban, but I said in my heart, never at any time have I shed the blood of man, and I shrunk and would that I might not slay him.
So the Spirit told him to take Laban's life, to put him to death. But had Laban done anything according to the law of Moses that would justify him being put to death?
Yes.
Yeah, he had done a few things according to the law of Moses that were punishable by being put to death. So this was consistent with the law of Moses at the
He's
time.
a stealer, a liar, and a murderer.
Attempted.
But according to the law of Christ, is it immediately put to death someone who commits these things under the law of Christ? No. So would this happen in our day where the Spirit would say, oh, this person stole from you, take their life?
No.
No, and I am glad.
Right. Under the law of Christ, that's not the way it is, but this is how it was under the law of Moses during this period. It continues.
And the Spirit said unto me again, behold, the Lord hath delivered him into thy hands. Yea, and I also knew that he had sought to take away my own life. Yea, and he would not hearken unto the commandments of the Lord. And he also had taken away our property.
Right. So stealing and attempted murder, which according to the law of Moses, punishable by death. And it came to pass that the Spirit said unto me again, slay him, for the Lord hath delivered him into thy hands. But this was consistent with God's law at the time. maybe 13.
Behold the Lord the wicked to bring forth his righteous purpose. It is better that one man should perish than that nation should dwindle and perish and go.
Yeah. It continues.
And now when I, Nephi, had heard these words, I remembered the words of the Lord which he spake unto me in the wilderness, saying that inasmuch as thy seed shall keep my commandments, they shall prosper in the land of promise.
Yeah, and I also thought they could not keep the commandments of the Lord according to the law of Moses, saying they should have a law.
Okay. And the law of Moses was written in the first 5 books of Moses. What are those 5 books? Genesis, Exodus, Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, right? So those.
Is it Numbers?
That's where the.
book?
No, it's just
No,
one.
it's just one.
So the law of Moses was contained there. So if they didn't
There are
bring
some split into
the
two.
plates of brass, they wouldn't have had those books of Moses, and they couldn't keep the law and the commandments. So
So like if
God
somebody didn't-
wanted them to have these.
So if somebody didn't have the book, they wouldn't know what the law of Moses was.
Exactly. That's why God told him to take the
They
plates of
wouldn't.
brass.
I mean, I'm
so
sure,
they could
like,
bring them
I'm
with
sure in the
them.
beginning they'd probably be able to teach their kids, but if they didn't have like the scripture to refer back to, it would get
mixed up
over
Yeah.
time, forgotten over time. So they just.
So in order to truly follow God, what do you have to have?
The
The scriptures, right? And just have them or actually studying them?
actually
Studying them.
Yeah,
right?
because
So-
I mean, like, even I've read the scriptures like a lot, and I don't remember them always at the top of
So
my
that's
head.
why you read it.
So you have to,
read it out.
yeah.
And I also knew that the law was engraven upon the plates of brass. Okay, exactly.
And again, I knew that the Lord had delivered Laban into my hands. For this cause, that I might obtain the record according to his command.
18.
Therefore I did obey the voice of the Spirit, and took Laban by the hair of the head, and I smote off his head with his own sword.
Are there any other examples in the law of Moses times in the Old Testament where people used a sword to smite off someone's head? Who else did that?
In
Anybody
the
know?
Old Testament,
In
or
the Old Testament.
in the Old Testament?
It's the other part of the story of David and Goliath we don't talk much about.
David to Goliath?
After David
I don't remember. I remember
hit him with
that.
the sling, he walked up, took out Goliath's sword,
Okay.
and smote off his head and scared away the Philistines when they saw what David did. So these are the kinds of things that happened under the law of Moses. Verse 19.
And after I had smitten off his head with his own sword, I took the garments of Laban and put them upon my own body, yea, even every whit. And I took gird on his armor about my loins.
So he put Laban's clothes on himself. Why would he do that? And after I had done this, I went forth unto the treasury of Laban. And as I went forth towards the treasury of Laban, behold, I saw the servant of Laban who had the keys of the treasury. And I commanded him in the voice of Laban that he should go with me into the treasury.
And he's supposed to me to be his master, Laban, for he held the garments and also the sword girded about my loins. So
He thought it
He was.
Laban, so he technically he stole though.
Well, and we see other examples in the Old Testament. Abraham was asked who the woman was with him, and it was his wife, but he was afraid that if he said that, they might take his life. So in order to enter the city and fulfill God's commandment, he needed to say, no, this isn't my wife, it's my sister. And that allowed him to stay safe and go and do the things that God wanted him
Wait,
to
why
do.
did he have to say his sister?
Well, the
Because-
details are,
I think the king
yeah,
was
the king had the right to
To
kill a man in
to
order
take
to take his wife.
Yeah, I think that was it.
And the king
Liked
his wife. So if he says, oh, this is my wife, then he would have been killed by the king. By saying it's my sister, basically what happened, she was taken to the king and an angel came and said, you can't be with her, she has a husband. And the angel kind of saved the situation, and the king
Kinda
let her
scared
go.
the
and
king away.
Scared the king away. He's like, never mind, forget it.
He's my
So
sister.
basically, in these situations where it's life or death, it shows that God allows some of these things to happen, and if it's a life or death kind of situation. Like right here, if he would have said, "Hi, it's me, Nephi," what would have happened?
You'd be put to death.
He would have been put to
The
death.
servant
right?
would have been
The
called all of Laban's
guards who were
guards.
looking for Nephi, right? So
Red
we see in the scriptures in these life or death situations that God has allowed these things to happen in order for God's work to be completed.
And he spake unto me concerning the elders of the Jews, he knowing that his master Laban had been out by night among them.
And I spake unto him as if it had been Laban.
And I also spake unto him that I should carry the engravings which were upon the plates of brass to my elder brethren, who were without the walls. So he's saying, yeah, I need the brass plates, I need to take them to my brethren so we can look at them.
Okay. And I also bade him, what does bade?
I told him.
Told him.
That he should follow me.
Any 26?
And he's supposing that I spake of the brethren of the church, and that I was truly that Laban whom I had slain, wherefore he did that. So he tricked him.
There was a reason he was doing it. Let's see what it is. 27.
And he spake unto me many times concerning the elders of the Jews, as I went forth unto my brethren who were without the walls.
And it came to pass that when Laban saw me, he was exceedingly frightened, and also Lemuel and Sam. They fled from before my presence, for they supposed it was Laban, and that he had slain me, and sought to take away their lives also.
So when Laban, Lemuel, and Sam saw him, what'd they do?
He's
Right?
coming out to get him.
He's coming straight for us. And it came to pass that I called after them, and they did hear me, wherefore they did cease to flee from my presence.
And it came to pass that when the servant of Laban beheld my brethren, he began to tremble, and was about to flee from me and return to the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah, so now who's afraid?
Joram,
Who?
servant.
I think someone's read this chapter before. The servant of Laban was now afraid. Like, who are these people? Where's Laban, right? So he starts freaking out. 31.
Wait, I wonder how he's gonna act when he finds out.
Let's see.
31. And now I, Nephi, being a man large in stature, and also having received much strength of the Lord, therefore I did seize upon the servant of Laban and held him that he should not flee.
Just sees me.
Grabbed him.
He
So
grabbed
he didn't run
him.
away. How come he didn't want him to run away?
Because he might tell the servants,
Exactly,
not
right.
the servants, the guards.
This was
I
that
mean,
life-
maybe by this
life or
point
death
they might have.
situation.
I mean, by this point they probably already found Laban.
Potentially.
You know?
Right? So this was really a kind of scary situation. 32.
And it came to pass that I spake with him, that if he would hearken unto my words, as the Lord liveth, and as I live, even so that if he would hearken unto our words, we would spare his life.
So he made a covenant or a promise that what?
If he didn't tell anybody, he won't kill you.
Oh,
Right.
this I
But
didn't
it
tell anybody.
actually is even more than that. 33. And I spake unto him even with an oath, that he need not fear, that he should be a free man like unto us, if he would go down into the wilderness with us. So with Laban, what was this person? He was a what? He was a servant. And Nephi's made an oath or a covenant, a promise that if you come with us, you will no longer be a servant but a free man.
And I also spake unto him, saying, surely the Lord hath commanded us to do this thing, and shall we not be diligent in keeping the commandments of the Lord? Therefore, if thou wilt go down into the wilderness to my father, thou shalt have the place with us.
It's pretty much like saying if you go with
You'll
us,
be a
you'll
part
be
of
part
our
of the
family.
family.
Yeah.
And it came to pass that Zoram did take courage at the words which I spake. Now Zoram was the name of the servant.
How'd you know that?
I don't know. Lucky guess.
And he promised that he would go down into the wilderness unto our father. Yea, and he also made an oath unto us that he would tarry with us from that time forth.
So he would live with them. become a part of their
Stay
family.
with them.
Now we were desirous that he should tarry with us for this cause, that the Jews might not know concerning our flight into the wilderness, lest they should pursue us and destroy us.
And it came to pass that when Zoram had made an oath unto us, our fears did cease concerning him. They felt kind of at peace. 38.
And it came to pass that we took the place Rash and the servant of Laban and departed into the wilderness and journeyed unto the tent of our father.
Then they had the long trip back to the Valley of Lemon where they were. Nice job, guys.
Why?
Click
that subscribe button.